Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 138. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where we talk about movies. Mostly movies in theaters, but also some streaming ones as well. We break them down in this podcast. We'll talk a little bit about the non-spoiler stuff in the first half of the podcast. It'll kind of give you an idea as to what the movie might be about, very high level, and then I'll give you a recommendation, whether you should check it out in theaters, wait for streaming, or maybe skip it. And in the second half of the podcast, we spoil some stuff about the movie. Not too much spoilers, but just to give you an idea as to what I like or didn't like about the movie. And then we wrap up the podcast by deciding, is this movie timeless after one viewing? Can I see myself rewatching this movie or owning it as a digital movie or even a physical movie as well? Before we jump into this week's episode, I did want to highlight that the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on all platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Give us a listen, follow, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. Leave us some reviews. I would love to hear you guys' feedback about some of the past reviews that I have been able to cover. Speaking of past reviews, episode 137 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is out on all platforms, and I ended up talking about the new film 28 Years Later from Danny Boyle, Alex Garland. It was a heck of a movie. Very strange ending. I talk a little bit about that on the podcast, so if you're interested, go check out episode 137 now. And in the comments, whether on Spotify or YouTube, leave a note. Let me know, do you agree or disagree with some of my thoughts about 28 Years Later? All right, let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode in which we are talking about the new film from Apple Films, and I believe also in conjunction with Warner Brothers. It is called F1, the movie. Ever since I saw the trailer for this one, I think I was towards the end of 2024, it was accompanied by the Queen song, and oh man, it just completely got me so pumped. And this became F1, my most anticipated, or one of my most anticipated movies of 2025. I just could not believe how amazing the trailer looked. I am not a race guy. I don't really follow Formula One. I don't follow anything related to race cars. I'm not a car guy at all either. So this really shouldn't work for me. But the way that they filmed certain scenes in the trailer just got me so hyped. And then I saw the name Joseph Kosinski. He is the director of F1, but also the director of Top Gun Maverick, which was one of my favorite movies of 2022. And so when I heard that, I thought, okay, if he filmed amazing scenes with fighter jets, I can't wait to see what he's going to do with Formula One race cars. And so that was one of the items that I just want to let you guys know as to why I wanted to watch this movie. Let's go ahead and race over to the next segment in which we are going to be covering the non-spoiler thoughts of F1. All right, I got to check out F1 at an early screening. I was super excited. I got a chance to actually watch a movie before it actually came out. So, what are my thoughts? I thought that F1 was a really fun movie. There was just so much things in the film that I really enjoyed that just were speaking to me in various different ways. One of them, I've talked about it a little bit already, but the race car scenes. Anytime Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, anytime we're dealing with anything regarding the racing, the actual, them being in the cockpit, being able to see the action and maneuver from the cameras and how it swings to looking at the cockpit and the driver, then looking at their surroundings, everything was just so impeccable. And it was thrilling. It was exhilarating. Every time you were dealing with something race related, it was just incredible for me. And that's, again, one of the biggest takeaways that I can give. And again, if you haven't seen the movie, one of my biggest reasons why I would push for you guys to watch it is just to check out these incredible race sequences and the way that they're able to film all of those as well. Also, apart from the action that is going on the track, there's also a cool dynamic outside of the track. You have Brad Pitt's character of Sonny and Damson Idris' character of Joshua, the old school, new school. You have the veteran and then the rookie these two guys that are on the same team that butt heads a lot, and they're having to kind of really work together in order to help out their driving team. So not only is it the action that makes it very interesting, but it's also the dynamic between these two characters. It's not a perfect movie, though. There is a couple of flaws, at least in my personal opinion. Maybe you might disagree when we get there, but again, really overall a fun movie to check out, and really a blockbuster. This is essentially those types of movies that just kind of check all the boxes as to what you would want in a summer action movie. Little plot synopsis for you. That way you can kind of get an idea as to what F1 is about. Apart from F1 being related to Formula One, this film deals with the main character, Sonny Hayes. Sonny is played by Brad Pitt. You immediately get put into the situation where he is racing in this location called the Daytona 24-Hour Classic. So he is basically helping out a specific team, and you get to see his little routine, his superstitions, and then you see how skilled of a driver he really is and how fast he is. He's able to help the team go from, I think, 7th or 8th place all the way to basically winning the race. And so it just shows off how skilled and talented Sonny is, but it also shows you how he is in real life off the track. Not only is he fast in driving, but he's also fast in moving on, because as soon as he wins that race, he's already moving on to the next circuit that he's trying to compete in. And so it's just kind of giving the audience an understanding as to, well, what is Sonny really looking for? Is it the winnings? Is it the trophies? What is he looking for in regards to continuing to find different circuits to race? And you eventually find that out. But before he goes to Ensenada to compete in his next race, he actually gets contacted by one of his older friends named Ruben. Ruben is played by Javier Bardem, and Ruben ends up convincing Sonny to come and join him on his actual Formula One race team called Apex. APX actually is the abbreviation. And he wants Sonny to help him win one race. They have 9 races left in Formula One. If he does not win a race, Ruben ends up losing the team. And so he has no other choice but to contact Sonny and get his help. Sonny ends up making the trip over, and he ends up butting heads with the up-and-coming hotshot in Joshua Pierce, played by Damson Idris. And they both have this conflicting dynamic. You have an up-and-comer who wants to prove his worth and prove that he is the best driver in the world. And then you have Sonny, who is a retired, or so we find out, not so retired F1 racer, and he's coming back into the game. And so they end up conflicting a lot and eventually have to team up in order to help Ruben keep his Formula One team. That is essentially what the movie is about. Once again, I had a fun time watching this movie. There's just so many cool things that we can kind of pick and choose as to what were some of the best moments. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the spoilers. But overall, there's so many thrilling scenes. There's so many great action moments when you are on the racetrack with Sonny, with Joshua. Just so many awesome things that we can kind of pinpoint. Again, there are some things that bring the experience down just a little bit. Again, it's just maybe a couple of cheesy lines here and there. But overall, my recommendation for you guys is, if you really are into Formula One, I would say go check it out. And even if you aren't a fan of Formula One like I am, I have no indication as to how this sport really works. How do these athletes actually get prepared for these types of situations of racing at hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour? I'm not into that. Yet this film kept me so invested and so engaged, and made me want to maybe be more interested in watching F1. So my recommendation is check this one out. And if you do check it out in Dolby Cinema or IMAX. Try to check it out on a big screen, because again, the action, the sound, the speakers are really going to help elevate this experience. So that's my recommendation for Formula One. All right, now let's go ahead and dive in to the spoilers section of this podcast. So if you have not seen Formula One yet, please jump out of the video, watch the movie, then come back and in the comments of wherever you're listening, Spotify or YouTube, leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on Formula One. Okay, last warning, again, spoilers from here on out. Let me jump into my first spoiler and my first pro of Formula One. What was the thing that really called out to me as to why I enjoyed this movie so much? First thing has got to be the presentation and the play by play of the Formula One races. I thought this was a great call to include this within this film. One, because the play by play announcers that are heard within every one of the races that Sonny, Joshua, and some of the other racers are in, you can hear that throughout the film. But for somebody that is like me, clueless about the actual racing and strategy of Formula One, the play-by-play announcers explained everything very concise. They explained what were some of the strategies that some of the racers had, why they needed to change wheels, what the flags represented when there was a penalty. Sometimes you would see a blue flag, a red flag, a yellow flag. The play-by-play announcers just completely provided that context, and I thought it was a very clever way in order to provide exposition. Like, typically when you hear exposition or you see a character explain it, it's very obvious. It's a trope that you can very clearly see that they're trying to explain something to the audience, and they do it like in a specific conversation. Here, it's done through a play-by-play, but that's what a play-by-play analyst has to do. They have to explain because there could be new listeners or new viewers that don't know the sport, and they need that kind of element explained to them. So that entire kind of idea of including the play-by-play every time they were racing to explain why Sonny was getting these penalties, what was he doing, that I really appreciated because, again, I don't know the sport, but it helped me understand, at least in layman's terms, oh, okay, this is why Sonny's doing this. He's trying to get some assistance for Joshua to get back into the race or to get a better pole position or to just try to get a little bit closer to the top of all the leaderboards as well. So really appreciated that. Now, I can definitely see how maybe for avid Formula One fans or really folks that are just into this sport, maybe you guys look at that and say, oh, that we don't need that. Like, that's just too much explaining. Or maybe you guys can even correct me. Were the strategies that Sonny was doing, are those even valid? Like, maybe that's outlandish what he was doing in the race and that they would probably just penalize him and kick him out of the race. But I guess any Formula One fans that are listening or have watched it before, let me know in the comments. Are those tactics that Sonny did in the film, are they valid? Are they real? If not, let me know. I definitely would want to know more about that kind of a process. Moving on to the next pro, I wanted to call out that, and this one might be an obvious one, but the filming of the action scenes, the cinematography of all of the race sequences were immaculate. Yeah, I mean, everything from watching Sonny start the race and you see him from the cockpit, it's just incredible. Everything looks realistic. Everything from as soon as the race starts, you actually see from a cool point of view and a perspective where the camera is almost like it's mounted on top of Sonny's head. And every time he moves left, he moves right, he can see the other race cars around him. And you can even see when they clip each other, when their tires mark, sparks flying out. And even when there's a couple of crashes, they look super realistic. Again, from a guy that has never seen a Formula One race, it looks realistic to me. But everything from the cinematography, the filming, the framing, the camera work of all of the racing action was just so well done. It was fantastic. And I really loved it. Again, it made me appreciate and really elevated the tension whenever there was certain scenes of either Sonny or Joshua trying to advance and get past another driver, how they were just trying to, you see the intensity in their face when they're just trying to, okay, should I attack now? Should I wait? Hey, get behind me so you can get a little bit more draft, a little bit more air, and then go past me so you can kind of get that advantage that you're looking for. Everything of the filming of this, just props to Joseph Kosinski, props to the cinematographer, props to all of the cameramen and camera women that were working on this film because they just nailed these perspectives where everything felt just perfect. Like nothing was edited in a way that made it feel like, okay, this just doesn't feel believable. It made you feel like you were in the cockpit, you were driving, and it gave me goosebumps at times, especially in certain moments. And I'll talk about one that really gave me goosebumps a little bit later on in the podcast. Okay, and then last pro that I have is going to be the chemistry between Brad Pitt and Damson Idris, their characters Sonny and Joshua. I mentioned this a little bit before in the non-spoiler section, but once again, you have this great combination, this duo of a veteran and a rookie. You have an up and comer in Joshua Pierce who doesn't want to take anything from Sonny. He doesn't want to learn anything from him. He doesn't think that he should be on the team. And he's just trying to protect himself and his job because he knows that if Ruben loses a team, he's out of a job. So he's got to really put up a good poker face. He's got to show that even though he's losing on Apex, he still wants to be hired for a different team. And so he has this arrogance, this type of this energy on him that says, I don't feel like I'm going to learn anything from Sonny. And then you have the opposite, where Sonny is a character that doesn't take crap from anybody. He speaks his mind. He is a straight arrow. He just wants the straight talk to every conversation that he's in. And but then you find out that both characters are the different side of the same coin. They're both very similar in their ways of not wanting to listen, only wanting to take their own advice, and really kind of blocking out other specific types of perspectives that folks might have. So that dynamic was really fun because whenever they would banter and go back and forth, those were some of the funniest lines and the funniest moments of the entire movie. You'd have Joshua saying how old Sonny was, and then Sonny kind of making fun and clowning on Joshua that he hasn't won a race. And so all this stuff ends up happening between the two. But as the movie goes on, you start seeing them build their relationship, build their connection. But what I loved is that they didn't just become best friends until the end. No, it ends up leading to them still being kind of at odds at certain moments, but still learning from each other and still helping each other out, eventually teaming up in order to finally win a race. And yes, it ends up happening on the last race of the Formula One schedule. So it was really cool. And it really surprised me. The dynamic, the chemistry. Not only was it funny and it was actually, again, a really good surprise, but it also had a little bit of a twist at the end. I thought they were going to do in this movie the classic trope where you have the old school, the old generation, not only teaching the new generation, but then helping them get that experience and helping them win a race. That's exactly what I thought. I thought Sonny was being set up to help Joshua win the final race. Instead, what ends up happening is they kind of flip it on its head. They seem like they have Sonny kind of setting up Joshua. Joshua goes and he's in first place, but then eventually Joshua is able to knock off, I think it's Lewis Hamilton who's behind him. They both get knocked off of the race, and they actually let Sonny win the race in Formula One. And so it was a complete bamboozle from the movie on my side. I did not think they were going to let Sonny win the race, but they ended up doing that. And again, all because of that setup of how they were trying to show you the two characters, the two sides of Sonny and Joshua, showing you the dynamic, showing you that, hey, look, Sonny, he's the veteran. He doesn't have a lot of time in regards to his career in Formula One, but Joshua does. He's still got plenty of races, plenty of years to still get a couple of wins under his belt. And so that was a really cool aspect, and I really liked how they kind of switched it up on me in this movie. So really good twist. And again, overall good dynamic between these two characters. All right, those are all of the pros that I had about Formula One. Let me move on to the one con that I had about this movie, and it bothers me because I know that this is just a personal thing. This is just a nitpick. So again, guys, understand this is just a personal opinion. When you hear it, you're gonna let me know in the comments. No, Victor, this is not a con. Come on, do better. So totally understand. But just in my personal opinion, I felt like even though the movie was actually 2 hours and a half, it did not feel like that, which is actually a good thing. But I feel like there could have been a lot of things that they could have either changed, cut, and not included, and maybe replaced with other things. And one immediate thing that I think that they could have improved on was, although I really enjoyed the dynamic between Sonny and Joshua, I actually really would have appreciated if they would have shown more of Joshua getting almost the not the redemption, but getting the pit crew on his side. Like at the beginning, he's very arrogant, very cocky, doesn't care too much about the pit crew. He just wants the best car in order to get a win. But then by the end of the movie, he immediately gets the I guess he's on the side of the pit crew, and the pit crew's immediately wanting to go run with him. They're having a good time with him. And I feel like that was a little too quick. So I really would have loved if Joshua could have built up and won the trust of the pit crew. So I guess my overall con is I wanted more chemistry between Joshua and the pit crew and showing how Sonny was able to win them over very quickly because of his charm, because of how he acted with them, because of how he respected all of them to an extent. So I just wanted more of that. I felt like it was too quick at the end. I would have loved more of Joshua, again, learning from his mistakes, learning from how Sonny has kind of helped him out, and seeing, oh, okay, if I help and show the rest of the pit crew that they are valuable, they are important, they're going to be on my side. And then as a team, we're going to be able to win together. So I would have really loved that, just to show that a little bit more within the film. Also, to me, I would have also cut a little bit of the romance between Kate, who's played by Carrie Condon, and Brad Pitt and his Sonny Hayes. No offense, Carrie Condon as Kate, she did great. She was like the technical director of the Apex team. She was the one that was really kind of navigating what were the specific game plans in regards to what Joshua and Sonny would do in the races. But I don't think I really needed the romance between Sonny and Kate. That was just like an added thing that, again, kind of like a checkbox for summer blockbuster, showing a little bit of that romance for folks that might be going that, go to movies looking for those kind of things. I feel like we didn't need it. I like that maybe it could have been more of like an on again, off again, where like, hey, they're like teasing that they're going to have a romance, but maybe it doesn't happen. But oh, yes, at the end, maybe it does. I would have more appreciated that kind of flirting throughout the movie. I didn't need to see the romance actually happen within the film. That's a me thing. That's probably not something that you guys can think about. But again, let me know. Maybe you agree or disagree with that specific con. So again, that's my overall big nitpick of the movie is it could have been great if it would have cut some of these typical these little tropes, these cheesy lines, and they would have added more chemistry and the dynamic of the pit crew, how important the pit crew is for every single race, how important it is to build that trust in order to really show that it is a team effort and it's not just the drivers. So that again, overall, my one big nitpick of that movie that could have elevated that experience for me if we would have just cut a little bit of the extra stuff that maybe wasn't needed. All right, now before we move on to awards, I also did want to call out that I really enjoy the dynamic between Sonny and Joshua. Again, they had this really cool back and forth, laughing at each other, ribbing at each other, making fun of each other, like of how old one is or how young one is. And it kind of made me think of what are some of the cool duos that have this very conflicting relationship that end up teaming up together to help each other out. I'll give you a top 3 that just came to my mind, and you let me know in the comments below, in Spotify or in YouTube, what are your top 3 duos that have this very conflicting relationship but end up helping each other at the end? First 3 that kind of come into my mind, and guys, please humor me. These are just going to be jokes. These aren't serious, like here are the best 3 and everybody else is wrong. But my 3 duos that are kind of like veteran and rookie, old school, new school, that came to my mind. First one was Into the Spider-Verse, where you have Peter B. Parker and Miles Morales. You have a older Spider-Man that is kind of out of the game, and he's having to teach Miles how to be Spider-Man. He's kind of conflicted. He doesn't want to teach Miles. Miles doesn't know if he is meant to be Spider-Man, but they end up having a great relationship that leads to them being able to beat Kingpin at the end. So that, I think, was one of the ones that came into my mind. Another one, Top Gun Maverick, another Joseph Kosinski film, where you have Maverick in Tom Cruise's character, and then you have Rooster, which is Miles Teller's character. Both of them having this conflict, this tension, because you have Maverick wanting to build a relationship with Rooster, and Rooster wanting none of it. And then at the end, they're forced to work together in order to get out of a sticky situation. And then my top of this duo relationship of conflict between the old school and the new school, it's going to be a funny one, but Batman Forever. I'm always going to remember when you had Batman and then you had Robin. This is that first team up in the movies, and you had Chris O'Donnell's character of Robin, wanting to be his own hero. And then you had Val Kilmer's Batman, who resisted. He didn't want a partner. He didn't want a sidekick. And then it leads to that awesome line at the end where you have Robin say, as a sidekick, and Batman finally confirming, no, as a partner. And so those are like the 3 relationships that just came to my mind when I thought of these two characters that have conflicting ideas, conflicting moments, and then eventually leads to a great partnership. But again, those are just first three that came to my mind. Guys, you guys let me know down below. What are your three favorite duos and relationships that had very conflicting ideas and concepts that were from an old school member and then a new school member, or a rookie and a veteran? Whatever you guys can think of, let me know down below in the comments. All right, let's move on to the awards. We'll make this one real quick. My first award for MVP. Who is the best performance in this movie? Again, I got to give a shout out to Damson Idris. He did great as Joshua. Again, the hot shot, the arrogant new F1 driver, wanted to make a name for himself. I thought he did an excellent job in his role. Got to give a shout out to Carrie Condon, who played Kate. Again, she had this very strict kind of mindset in regards to how she wanted to develop the plans and how she wanted to lead Apex specifically. So again, I wanted to give a shout out to Carrie Condon as well. But my favorite performance is going to be Brad Pitt as Sonny Hayes. He has the character that is just the coolest guy in any room that he is in, wherever he is, on the racetrack, off the racetrack. He's just suave. He's just walking around, always has the coolest attire, always has just the coolest reactions. He's always so mellow and chill. It's awesome. I always love the way that Brad Pitt can just naturally have this kind of charisma with any of his characters. And no exception here. He had it as Sonny Hayes every time. He always had the best one-liners, the best comebacks against Joshua, against Kate, against Ruben. No matter who it was, he always had the funniest lines. So my favorite performance in this one, an MVP, is Brad Pitt. My best moment, best scene of F1 has got to be the action sequence that happens, and I believe it happens in one of the Dutch Grand Prix, I think, within the Formula One race. You have the characters of Joshua and Sonny. They are on the racetrack. They're driving. It seems like they're going to be finally working together. You have Sonny leading Joshua, telling him to get behind him and tell him, okay, you're going to have a straight opportunity to catch up to this first place driver. When I tell you, you're going to get into position and then attack. And so that's exactly what Joshua does. The music kicks in. Hans Zimmer's score starts making it much more of an intense and an elevated scene. My heart starts beating. I get goosebumps. You have Joshua actually get in a good position. And what does Joshua do? He ends up thinking, nope, I'm not going to wait for Sonny. I'm going to attack at this moment. I have an opening. And what ends up happening? He ends up skidding on the road. His car ends up flipping. And then the noise just completely stops. The sound design completely just goes quiet. And you don't hear any music, any score, any racing. All you hear is just a very light tone of just something very drastic and sad happening, which is basically Joshua's car flipping and crashing on the side of the track. It was crazy how much of a rush it got, and it got gasps out of people at my theater. So really great stuff. That was one of my favorite and most exhilarating scenes of F1. And then last but not least, the final award of best shot or frame, cinematic moment in the movie that can just, to me, represents what could be the poster of this movie. For me, there's a lot of different things I can choose from, but mine is going to be anytime Joshua or Sonny are in a cockpit. Again, it just looks so realistic, so cool with their actual helmet on. And again, the way that the camera would just move from outside of their cockpit to inside. But again, I'm going to choose any time Sonny or Joshua is in their car in a race. It just looks so cool and epic and intense. Again, any one of those shots is going to be my shot of the movie. All right, guys. I've been talking long enough in regards to Formula One. It is time to wrap things up and decide, is this movie timeless? Is it something that I can see myself rewatching in the future? This is going to be a very interesting decision. I'm actually going to say that Formula One is not a timeless movie. Reason being is I actually felt like what brings it down for me is those types of interactions and kind of cheesy lines and the tropes that it kind of got into. I really wish they could have just elevated those scenes a little bit more. Like I mentioned before, if they would have maybe cut a couple of things and then included more of the relationship between Joshua and the pit crew, showing how important that would have been, showing more of the dynamic and showing more of how Joshua was learning from Sonny throughout the different races that they had. I would have much more enjoyed that than seeing some of the, again, maybe scenes to make you laugh or the typical tropes of like team bonding. I didn't really need those. I've seen those before in other movies. I feel like adding those elements and showing a little bit more of how different this movie could be from other sports movies or racing movies, just adding more of the character element to it, more of the drama off the track, I think that would have just made this movie a great hit for me. So although the racing sequences are probably some of the best that I've seen, and those are timeless for me, I would definitely go back and watch it just for the racing action. But it's the off the track elements I think that make it just a little bit more of a movie where I'm like, I don't really want to see this team bonding, or I don't want to really see this interaction. That's kind of what brings it down for me. I definitely can see myself, flipping on this and changing my mind if I watch this again. And I do want to watch it again in theaters because of the fact that this is definitely a theater going experience. So if I leave you with anything, again, even though I don't consider it timeless, I would still recommend you guys watch it in theaters just to feel the rush of the race cars in Formula One. All right, everybody, those are my thoughts about F1, the movie. What do you guys think about my opinions, my thoughts, and also what are your opinions on this movie being timeless? Do you think that it is one of those, the best racing movie that you've ever seen? Let me know down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And again, we can always agree to disagree in our opinions, but that way we can have a very civil discussion about this movie. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to episode number 138 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you staying all the way to listen to my full thoughts. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new movie, and it is going to be Universal's Jurassic World Rebirth. I'm pumped. I mean, we are in the summer movie season, guys. So stay tuned to the podcast. Make sure to follow me on any of the social media platforms. And again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you guys later.